Hi there. Yes, as Anne mentioned, I'm on loan from Sundance for today, so we're proudly wearing a Provincetown T-shirt today. Let's hear it one more time for Anne Hubble and everybody at the Provincetown Film Society, the Provincetown Film Festival. Let's hear it for the entire staff and all the volunteers of this festival that make it happen. I'm really excited to be here to moderate this conversation, and I'm going to bring out our guests in a moment. But even though the movie's being finished now, I was able to watch the current cut of the film as it's being wrapped, and just the other day, looking forward to talking about it, looking forward to you being able to see it in, I believe, August, and someone could yell out the date it opens in a moment, if you know A24, the date that it opens. Because I don't remember the date, but please say it out loud at some point. August 14th, you can see this movie. Tony, who here lives in Provincetown? Great. Who here was in Provincetown in the 70s? Let's hear it. Let's see you. Great. Okay. Parenthetically, John Waters told me yesterday this is his 63rd summer in Provincetown. That's incredible. But we're going to talk about this movie, Tony. You're going to see in two clips today, almost 10 minutes from the film. But what we're going to show you now, before we bring out our guests, is really kind of a key moment. It's early in the film. It's credit sequence as Tony, Anthony Bourdain, is arriving for what will be a significant summer in his life, time in his life, in P-Town. So let's play that clip, and then we'll bring out our guests and talk about the movie, and then later in the program we'll show you another clip from the film as well. So let's take a look at the opening sequence of Tony. Go ahead and roll it. So Tony is directed by Matt Johnson from a script by Johnson, Matthew Miller, Todd Bartels, and Lou Howe. Yes. The cast includes not only Dominic Sessa, who you saw on screen a moment ago, and you'll see in a second, but also includes the iconic Antonio Banderas, Leo Woodall, Emilia Jones, Stavros Halkias, Dagmara Dominics, and I'm going to say that incorrectly, and Rich Summers. It's a terrific cast, and I'm really excited to have a chance to talk with Matt and two of the actors from the film now. So please join me in bringing to the stage Matt Johnson, Dominic Sessa, and please join us in bringing Leo Woodall. Come on out, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you, Eugene. This is a real honor. It's like a Sundance premiere of the opening credits of our movie.
Exactly. And in a little bit, we're going to talk about the movie a bit. Hold on. Okay. There we go. Yeah. We're going to talk about the movie a bit, Matt and Dominic, Leo. And then after we chat a bit, at the end, before we go have a clam bake, we'll take a look at another clip. Well, how does it feel to be back, guys?
We were remarking at how wonderful it is to be in Provincetown and not have to be making a movie. Because this really is an amazing place. I had moved here I think I lived here for 2 months when I was putting the screenplay together. But it was really, really, really off season. As you guys who live here know, it was like the dark times. I think I got here end of February. And I lived, do you guys remember the house just off of Commercial that was on the stilts for a long time, right next to Sniffs of Adventure? So I lived behind that house in an Airbnb, and every day I would just walk out to 361 Coffee and be like, what the fuck am I doing here? And the only people in town, and you guys who live here will know, are the people walking their dogs along Commercial, and there's nobody else. The whole place is abandoned, but I got to meet all the other like year-rounder lifers, and the people who gave me those stories is a lot of what you will see in this movie. Specifically, I got to give him a call out. Larry Luster and his brother. I got insane information from those guys. If you don't know, Larry, him as a young boy is in the film. He plays a dishwasher, and he now owns Ciro and Sal's, which is our absolute favorite restaurant. We were there last night. It's unbelievable. And so to be back here and not need to be worried about the production schedule and shooting and the fucking city telling us that they're going to shut us down every 5 minutes because we're packing the streets, etc. I'm not throwing shade. In fact, it was the most cooperative city I've ever filmed a movie with in my life. But I mean that sincerely. Come to Toronto. It's an honor. We love being back here because now we get to just be on vacation, which is great.
And we all get to have a clam bake in a little bit.
Exactly.
Just to open up the conversation, Matt, first, and then I'll weave in Dominic and Leo. In the chapter of Kitchen Confidential called "Food is Sex," who's read Kitchen Confidential? And I'm guessing everybody knows the Tony of, in the movie Anthony Bourdain. How many people have seen his various shows or read his other books? R.I.P. Amazing Anthony Bourdain. In the chapter called "Food is Sex" in Kitchen Confidential, Anthony Bourdain calls Provincetown Times Square / Christopher Street by the sea. And then kind of dives into this experience that he has in this summer, part of which is working at a restaurant, part of which is chasing a woman who works serving pizza. We know where that is, right? Spiritus. Tell us, maybe, Matt, as a starting point, and in the writing of the script and your collaboration with your co-writers, we now know what an important moment this period of time was for Anthony Bourdain, the time that he spent here. Tell us a bit more about why that moment in his life was such a great window for you into this bigger story, because the movie it's Tony in P-Town.
Well, there's a couple of ways to answer that question. The first one is that chapter that you read details not just the first summer that Tony came here in between years at school, but it also talks about when he came here the next summer, and he came another summer after that. And so it's actually 3 years of time that we're condensing into one summer in terms of things that happened to him. But why it was so interesting to have as the only moment that we have in our story is, one, because all of his writing about it is all self-report. So it's what he says was going on with him, which is something that me as a filmmaker am so interested in, because of course that's not what actually happened. This is him in some ways looking up and looking down at his own history and being like, this was important to me, and skipping all kinds of things. And so I'm always interested in that, almost from a journalistic point of view, like, what are you willing to tell us actually happened? Combined with, as I alluded to before, talking with other people who were there and getting their version of what actually happened really gives you a sense that, one, Bourdain is both lionizing and minimizing lots of things that happened to him, because even though he's writing that book from the position of being a total nobody, which is hard to think about, Kitchen Confidential is written by somebody who is not the Anthony Bourdain that we know. He's not world famous super celebrity. He's somebody who's trying to make it as a writer and doesn't realize this book is going to become a bestseller. And so he's creating a persona in the writing. And that idea of building yourself and creating yourself based on your own history, I was like, oh, okay. So what that's telling me is that this is the movie about the person who will become Anthony Bourdain. It is not the movie about the guy that we all know from Parts Unknown, that we can quote, that we like to watch on television. This is, in every sense of the word, an origin story. And that was exciting because it meant that Dom and I could really find a bunch of things that were relevant and meaningful to us, that we could connect with the details of his history. And I mean, I've said this before, but it kind of felt like the way that I felt when I was at summer camp as a kid and I had role models and I looked at older people to be like, okay, I want to be like him. Oh, wow, I want to be like that. I want to be like this person, and taking things from all of these different people. And you see me now and you think, oh, yeah, I was always like this, but I am the amalgam of all the people I looked up to when I was this exact age. And so I wanted to tell a story about that.
So the Tony we see in this film is really in that kind of limbo period or the transformative period. He's no longer a kid, but he's not quite an adult, and we see how much his experience here and the experience with the other people he meets, whether it's mentors like the Antonio Banderas character, whether it's the friendship or the bond he develops with Leo's character, we see how he is shaped by an experience that we can all relate to, whether it's Anthony Bourdain or just that moment in your life when you're so shaped and influenced by, to your point, so many people in your life as you're kind of trying to figure out who you are, which I think is also a very Provincetown
time
story.
Of finding your role models, and I believe so much in role models, and I think that not that it's not talked about nowadays, but I owe everything to the people who I looked up to, and they didn't even realize that I was looking up to them. The character that Leo plays in the movie, I think if you were to sit his character down and interview him and say, okay, so how much did you mean to Anthony Bourdain? He would say, fuck all. What do you mean? I'm sure he doesn't even think about me. When the truth is, the other chefs that Bourdain was training under, they created him, and they'll never know. And in the same way that all of us were created by the experiences that we had when we were young, and like that's our own secret. That this movie tries to, I use the word expose, but not negatively, basically gives us all permission to go, you know what? I really do owe my uncle. I really do owe this camp counselor I had, this person I met at church. Like, they created me. I love this quote from Carl Jung: a best friend tells you who you are. It says it all.
Yeah. And adding to what you're talking about, and let's bring these two guys into the convo, and I want to ask you about.
No, I want to keep talking about this.
I want to give you a chance to tell us why each of the two gentlemen sitting next to you were right to embody these roles, because I think that there's something very Provincetown also about what you're saying, in that this is a motley crew that young Tony finds in the kitchen and in the community here in Provincetown. And he fits in and finds sort of a personality that we will later discover from him in his work decades later, and how he continues to cultivate and explore those different like communities and subcultures and people throughout the course of his own life. But he finds it something special here, and that feels very Provincetown also. So teeing that up for you to think about it, and also as you weave in how these two gentlemen sitting next to you were right to embody these characters and explore some of these themes.
It's hard to talk about them when they're right here.
I know, but
look, I mean, there's not a deep answer to this. I like them. I became friends with Dom, and within one phone call, I was friends with Leo. And our process was, I mean, he might not have been friends with me. I considered him a friend. You know, it's very difficult to get Leo to like you. But the process was literally, do I like this person? Do I want to spend time with them? Making movies is not fun. Right? And so you'd better do it with people you love, because you're grinding. Like, we were here, and well, as I said, when I met Dom, I saw in him somebody who was wrestling with a lot of the same ideas that I was at that age. And at that time, I wasn't thinking about making an Anthony Bourdain movie, but it dawned on me, we can use the shared history that we have to approach this character. And with Leo, it was the exact same feeling, where I looked in his eyes, and even though I'm older than him, I saw those older guys that I looked up to in him. And I went, I don't know what it is, certain people just have it. I looked at him and I thought, oh, I really want to see where you take me, right? I want to know what you think about what I'm doing. And that's the kind of thing that it's not like you plan for. You just set it up. And luckily, these two struck up a friendship that was day one, almost the exact dynamic of the characters.
You did look up to me, didn't you?
Hey, mate. Yeah, I did look up to you a lot. It's true.
We all did. We would be like, okay, we gotta get Leo to take
Leo
us to the
like them.
Yeah.
I think that's very cool. It's like it's very similar to the film actually.
Remember when we were like, okay, let's get Leo to take us to the gym and show us what he does?
Yeah.
That was a big plan of ours. That before, because Leo got here late, and we were like, okay, when Leo gets to Provincetown, we'll have him take us to the gym and show us his secrets.
We're gonna get into everywhere so fast. Like we're gonna be so cool
Because we're gonna be hanging with Leo.
Yeah.
And then he did it. He didn't take us anywhere. He didn't want to hang out with us at all.
Dominic, tell us about the first sort of obvious question. We haven't, folks haven't seen the movie yet, but they're getting a taste of it. Tell us about stepping into the role of this young Anthony Bourdain. Matt talked about you being maybe in a similar place in certain ways at a similar time in your life. How does that resonate with you? And also, how did you prepare? Did you watch some of the shows? Did you read? Or how did you, beyond the script, obviously?
Yeah, I think... well, sorry, what was the first part of your question?
Well, the first part was whether what Matt was saying about how the sort of resonance between sort of you at a certain point of your life and Tony at a certain point of his life.
I think for me and for Matt as well, these kind of big transitional periods in your life, especially as a young man, like when you're in your late teens and early 20s, where you sort of, a big part of the character is he's sort of putting on not to reveal too much, but he's putting on a facade in a way of who he is, the way he presents himself to the world. And then I think Matt and I both had, for me, I think it was in high school when I started doing theater. It was the first time in my life where I was really vulnerable and kind of had to reveal myself and show the truth of who I was in order to kind of understand and see any sort of potential I had in life. And obviously we recognize Bourdain as this exceptional, inspiring person, as we got to know him later in his life. So that was the impetus. Is that the right word? For us to want to make the movie. It was like, what happened? Like, what was this transitional point? What was this time that really shot him off into writing and living this life that was so inspiring to people, And then I guess in terms of preparation, I never really wanted to, I always was weary about doing a biopic or like portraying a real person. And, what was really attractive about this was just I guess the level of agency I had with it. I mean, there was no footage to work off of from him at the time. And like, yeah, it was helpful, I think, as you said, reading his writing and watching Parts Unknown, etc., just to get a general vibe and energy of him. But really, there was like 4 or 5 pictures of him. There's one really famous picture of him like sitting at his desk with long hair, and it was photos of him that were kind of my main reference. We did this thing in acting school called the Archetype Project, where you get a picture or an image of something or person, and you sort of have to imagine in a way like what they move and speak like and how they exist. So it was similar to that. And then like a lot of it was just based off of just the real emotions and things I was dealing with at the time and still am, like just growing up. So a lot of that was really natural, I guess. Didn't have to work too hard for that.
So before I turn to Leo, I want to follow up on something that two of you are both talking about, Dominic, and that is maybe the ways that where you're going in your life at the time. And Matt, as you're thinking about exploring Tony's at this time period, what were some of the conversations the two of you had as you were finalizing the script? Was it pretty baked, or did you have to make some adjustments, or how did it shift or evolve in those conversations the two of you had from those conversations?
It was a total, it was a ground up exploration of things that we had in common. Once Dom, I would say every single line that Dom says in the movie just about are things where I had either heard him say something around that register, or were directly connected to a kind of shared theme of who am I and how am I going to do something with my life that we'd found. So it was a very ground up process. And I would say that also holds for Leo, Emilia, and Antonio Banderas. Each of them, like I was looking at, okay, where are they coming from in their life? And how can we build this character up rather than doing a top-down approach of being like, okay, I see this character as X, I want you to be X. We never did that. And it's why so much of the film, when you see it, it feels improvised, feels like the just characters are just behaving and we're watching it. And it's because it's coming from, at least in my naive opinion, who these people were to me. So it's us. It's just trying to answer questions and doing that from ground zero. Because you specifically said, well, what was it that Dom and I were both interested in? And again, we were meeting for the very first time, and it's not like we were getting deep on things. We were just talking about things we both liked, talking about what his life is like at home, talking about what he thinks about school. Like, and everything he said, I was like, oh my God, like this is exactly how I felt about these things. Dom's from New Jersey, not far from where Bourdain grew up. Like, there were so many things that were just connected. And as Dom said, I didn't want him to do a lot of research. I didn't want him to do an impression because, again, you never want to tell this to an actor, but we're done the movie, so I can tell him this now. It's like so much of what he is naturally is already there. And I didn't want him to be conscious of, okay, I need to do this. I need to pronounce things like this. I didn't want to turn him into somebody who was crafting a performance. I wanted him to be himself. And the more he could do that, the better it was.
Quick follow-up for Dom then. How did you feel that sense of freedom that Matt was trying to give you, or did that feel organic to you as you guys were?
Yeah.
crafting?
I mean, I think it's like and Matt's such a good friend of mine. He knows me pretty well at this point. And when someone like that is sort of writing the script for you, like writing the character, it makes it a lot easier. I think most actors feel that way when you have a relationship with the writer and director, and they're able to kind of put things in your voice. It fit like a glove. Just reading the pages, and it was so easy. Even if something sounded off or didn't, I don't know, it sounded weird immediately. We knew, like, it was just not. We would look at each other and it's like that doesn't sound right. How do we say this differently? That sounds just real, and honest. And that was our failsafe. Just as long as it's feeling true, it's going to be good. Hopefully,
Thank you. Leo, in a minute, we're going to watch a clip that will embody some of what I'm about to ask you. And Matt will set up that clip in a little bit. But when we meet you, when Tony meets your character is working in the restaurant where he's going to start washing dishes. And some of the scenes we see between the two of you are in the restaurant. There's some scenes outside of that, obviously. So my question is really two threads you could pick up on, either one first. One is just, you seem so at ease in this environment. Do you have a background at all in restaurants? You seem like really like comfortable in the restaurant environment, A. B, broader question about just as you guys were working together, some of the things that Dominic and Matt were just talking about, of sort of finding that free space to contribute to the shaping of that character.
Honestly, I was quite enjoying just sitting here and listening to you guys talk. I didn't have any kitchen experience, but I was very excited to learn how to shuck oysters, and that's basically all I do in that kitchen.
Not an easy thing to do necessarily.
It's not easy, and especially when you get cocky and you throw the towel away and you don't even look at the oyster, because I did impale my hand on like day 4. Which didn't help. I don't know. I mean, Sal, the guy that I play, it was a combination of fun and kind of terrifying. The I don't know, the way that we shot this and the way that Matt works in terms of he wants us to just take off our safety belts and just fucking go for it. Because that's really fun as an actor to play, but Sal's also kind of a twat. And so there's a lot of shit that I had to do that I didn't necessarily enjoy doing, but it was, I mean, we shot, how long were we here shooting?
In Cape Cod or in Provincetown specifically? In P-Town, we only shot here 5.5 days, which sounds like a little, but our entire movie was shot in 25 days. So it was
It was a
actually
quick one.
it was
It was a quick
actually a
one.
ton.
But honestly, 1 week in P-Town for me was it nearly stole my soul. So I think it was probably good that I got out there early. They initially had said, there's this A24 movie shooting in Cape Cod over the summer. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. What's it about? And Anthony Bourdain. And honestly, to my shame, I initially was like, yeah, who? And I was met with so many scowls and lines of questioning as to why I was such a moron, not really knowing enough about Anthony Bourdain, but getting to do the movie. The I don't know, the profound respect that I have for him now. I don't know, this was just a privilege of a job. It was a gift.
Thank you. Matt, I'm going to circle back to P-Town for a moment to ask you about the idea of making a film about a real person and sort of finding the fiction, but also finding the nonfiction, I guess, sort of navigating that. One of the sources we have to look at is Anthony Bourdain looking back at Provincetown in the beautiful episode that I've probably watched like 5 times at this point, from either Parts Unknown or No Reservations, whichever, I'm not sure which show it was, but where he spends a half hour exploring P-Town then in the time period, but also looking back and reflecting just a tiny bit on his own relationship to the place. I hope people have seen that, and if you haven't, I hope you will look it up. It's a beautiful episode. But I want to give you a chance to sort of talk about that as a source, and again, the notion of Tony looking back, you looking forward, and making something about a real person and balancing fiction and nonfiction. Those are all threads.
The real quote that set me up in that episode, and if you've seen it or if you haven't seen it, I'll reiterate it now, is that he's also here during the off season. It looks like it's cold and windy, and he's walking down the beach, and you'd think, oh, this looks miserable. Like there's nobody there. Like there's sand blowing in his face, and he's looking around with a huge smile on his face, and he's going, God, I look at this place and I wonder, what was I so angry about? And my notion of the persona of Anthony Bourdain is not of an angry adult. I watch his shows, and actually he seems the opposite. Like you could throw anything at him and he'd be like, yeah, this is no big deal. Like life goes on. Like he has a kind of live, let live energy that seems almost immune to anger. And that was a real clue for me, that he looked at Provincetown almost with nostalgia, but also regret, that he had wasted the potential to have a better time. There's this amazing interview I saw once with a at the time was a young man, but he was an older guy, and he was taken prisoner in a war. And at one point, the rival army had taken him into a prison, and he was certain he was going to be executed, okay? And he's reliving this moment where he's like, okay, I'm going to die. And he said, do you want to know what was interesting? Here I am, and I think I'm about to die. And I was thinking over my life, and I wasn't thinking, oh God, I wish I'd made more money. I wish I'd met more beautiful women. I wish I'd been a success. I wish I'd been famous. You know what he thought? He said, I wish I'd been nicer to people. And it's a profound statement. You're about to die, and the thing that you wish you'd done differently is that you had been nicer to your mom, started less arguments, been less of a jerk when you were tired and somebody asked you to move. And I saw that in Bourdain saying, what was I so angry about? And it's funny because, as has been said many times already on this stage, Provincetown is sort of a magic place where you'd think, well, how can anybody be upset here? And I think it is spoken from somebody who is upset here all the time. Is that why you were just laughing? These people, these tourists coming in, blowing up the price of real estate. Fuck them all. No, I remember I did live here for 2 months. I've heard everybody's little gripes about absolutely everything. Do you guys know the story of Sniffs of Adventure, the candle store? Do you know what it was originally called? Yeah, it's so obvious. It's Sense of Adventure. It's a candle store. Why is it called Sniffs of Adventure? One day I walk in and I go, I'm sorry. You got to tell me, why is this place called Sniffs of Adventure and not Sense of Adventure? And the owner crosses his arms, very sour look on his face, and he goes, we're in a legal battle. But the point I'm making is that the collision between thanks, Terrence. Terrence, by the way, is the second unit DOP and the camera operator of the whole movie. Boston's own. Whenever you see the camera moving beautifully in this film, it is because of Terrence, and truly he's a hero. But it was that collision between a place that is so much like a magical world where nothing could go wrong and a young man who's angry about it that I thought there's something here, right? Putting someone like Dom in a bad mood up against the city that you guys all know is... Yeah, I mean, again, I can't explain it perfectly, but somehow the movie is about that, about how everybody squanders their youth. That quote, "youth is wasted on the young," is so true, because you look at a teenager in a bad mood or yelling at their mom or just walking around scowling, and you want to shake them and go, what the fuck is wrong with you? Do you know what it's like to have a job? Like, you live in paradise and you've got a bad attitude about it? You're crazy. But it happened to all of us, and we were all like that. And so it's a universal constant that we as teenagers are little pieces of shit who are totally ungrateful. And yeah, and what better place to be ungrateful than Provincetown, Massachusetts? Which put it on the sign. Put it on the sign.
Which is why the email I sent to your friends and colleagues at A24 after watching the movie the other day was speaking to the universality. And so I do want to give, maybe I'll point to Dominic on this for a moment. But I was thinking a lot about that after watching the film, on that, and in the sense that it is about a person, a very specific person that some of us know or know a bit about, right? We know what he shared with us, and there's a lot we don't know. But we can relate to perhaps the moment he was in this time period of his life, because we've all lived that, or so many of us have lived that. So, so my question, I guess, Dominic, is really to expound on that a little bit. That notion of, you kind of started to get to this a little while ago, the notion of playing someone who's very specific, but also bringing a universal quality or a connection to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think really when I watched it, I had a feeling of hopefulness at the end of the movie. I think people want to see someone that is relatable kind of achieve greatness or realize that they're capable of that. And like, I think the big lesson out of the movie is, you know, greatness is earned, and you can't take shortcuts. And it's why this is so important in this time in his life and working in the kitchen, because it's kind of, for the first time in his life where he can't hide, he has to be honest. It's like just the practical nature of what it means to work in a kitchen. You have to be on time. You have to actually clean things, or else it's obvious you can't not cook things fully, or someone's going to get sick and die. Like you have to do things truthfully. And when you learn that as a young person, I think that's where you really start to flourish and you start to see your true potential in life. And I don't know, I think that's pretty. I like to think that's a universal thing, and something that you know, for me, why I wanted to make the movie. Not just because it was personal to me, but I think for everyone, especially at this stage in life, and also at any stage in life, as we saw with Bourdain himself. You know, he's 44, 45 years old when he really became, you know, the icon we recognize him as now. So I think that is also an element of it. Yeah.
Thank you. Leo, Dominic, I shouted out the names of some of the other performers in the film earlier. I botched one of them. Apologies. But since you two are here representing a bigger cast, shout out some of the folks you worked with. Certainly Antonio Banderas, certainly some of the others. I'd love to just hear them get a few moments of attention. Tell us about some of the other folks you worked with and about that experience.
Antonio is amazing and really funny in the movie, actually. And he's an incredible cook. Like he's a restaurant owner. He owns restaurants in Spain, and he came in very fully prepared to do all of the cooking stuff. Because I mean, we, like Matt said, we had 25 days. We had virtually zero prep time for a lot of this stuff. So he saved us. He saved us in so many scenes. You want to talk about Stavros?
Stavros basically plays himself in this movie. The sort of dynamic that my character had with his was that they were kind of brothers, but just could never say anything nice to each other. And Stavros is kind of the master at that. You know, anytime I threw anything back at him, I just, I don't know, waited in fear, waiting for how he was going to cut me up, because he's got genius. What the fuck are you whispering about?
Honest to God, we're talking about how cool you are. Literally, I swear to
get it.
Don leaned over and whispered to me, "Man, every time Leo talks, the girls all giggle." So that's what it was, all right? You jerk. Your two buddies are talking about how great you are. If only Stavros was here. He'd really trash you for that. Leo, you're underselling it, though. I mean, what you guys are going to... Actually, you're going to see this in the clip that we're going to screen.
Some of his best work, period.
So much of what these guys were doing is because I would just roll, right? So Terrence, who came up here and gave us those drinks, we would always shoot 2 cameras, and it was in a very, very small kitchen, and we would just roll. And these guys would just start going, and so much of that was Leo and Stavros really trying to hurt each other's feelings, like as bad as they could. And what was so great is that now that Dom was the new guy, they could take the pressure off one another and focus on him. So it was a lot of like those two teaming up and mocking the new guy. And that was just how the friendship kind of started, both in the film and in real life. But almost all of that is improvised. I don't remember writing a single line of you guys mocking one another ever.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I do remember we both turned to Dom at one point and we're like, did you know that when you signed up to play Anthony Bourdain, that all you were going to get was just like bullied and like
an abuse?
You were not going to, portray any of the cool parts of Anthony Bourdain. Just going to be this absolute rookie that keeps getting called a virgin, and like you did it well, but I mean that only as a compliment.
I'd be remiss, Matt, if I didn't highlight as well some of that you talked about DOP work, second camera. You talked. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about some of the creative elements. Some of us may not be able to fully appreciate until the audience sees the film in a couple of months. But not only is Provincetown a key character, and we'll come back to that in a minute when we get set up the last clip, but the music you will hear and see is just exceptionally chosen and exceptionally created. The original music as well as the songs that you use. So I'd love to give you a chance to talk about some of the other key departments and collaborators that you worked with on creating this look, setting it in a time period, all of that.
Sure. I mean, that's a huge topic because the people who worked in this movie were all people basically at the top of their field. I can very quickly answer one of your questions, which is that the music supervisor on this film is actually Anthony Bourdain. Like, we're so lucky in that Bourdain had made extensive lists from every year of this was my favorite song. When I first worked in the kitchen, this was the song I heard. In fact, in that exact episode, he talks about, I was really, really, really doing hacky stuff. I would just watch episodes of the show where he would talk about this exact time in his life, and he would recount what was on the radio, what was making him cry, what he loved to listen to while he was cooking. And we just put all those songs in the movie. I don't think there's a single song in the film that isn't one of Bourdain's literal favorite songs. But it's funny how time works, because it's not like it's his favorite song because his taste is exactly that. It's because that's the song he heard when he was becoming who he was, right? There's this great joke that you pick anybody, what's their favorite era of music? It's whatever was on the radio when they were 16 years old. Doesn't matter who you are. Oh my God, the best era of music was exactly when I was 16. And it's no coincidence. That's what we all think, right? And Bourdain was no different. And so that was one of the joys. And A24 was a huge help in that, because they understood that, okay, yeah, we're using huge songs in this movie, but That's the way to represent this guy's life. Now, in terms of the score, that's a very different discussion because you guys don't know this yet, but you'll see in this clip in the kitchen, you'll get a bit of a tease of this. We approach this movie in a very unique way, which is that Dominic Sessa is literally in every single shot of the film, and you as an audience never see, hear, or experience anything that he doesn't experience. So every shot is either what's happening to him or what he's looking at. And because of that, the interiority of that, like all you're wondering is, what is this guy thinking? What is he thinking? And because he's surrounded by people who are so much cooler, so much smarter, so much more experienced than he is. Truly. I'm not talking about Dominic Sessa. Dominic Sessa is very smart, very cool.
Again, written for me.
Yes, yeah, exactly. As I said, I did write it for him. But he's so hesitant to tell anybody the truth. Right? This is a movie where a character never tells anybody what they're thinking, what they want, what they feel, ever. And so it was the job of the score to let you, as the audience, know what's going on in his head. And so I worked with my closest friend, Jay McCarroll, who's done the music of all my films. He's a co-star in some of my movies. You know Jay, yes? Nobody better. And his approach was, I'm going to let the audience know what's going on in this kid's head. And it'll be the only time that we get to see what he's thinking. Because even though Bourdain is a hyper-verbal, I'm sure people are expecting to watch this movie and see Dom basically like tie characters in knots with how clever he is verbally. He might have less lines in the movie than Leo, which is crazy to think, right? It
Can't be true.
You just wait, baby. Just wait.
I didn't talk much after like day 2.
Yeah.
Well, we also were constantly cutting lines. Like it was just like, do I really need to say this? I feel
Exactly.
like can be clearly communicated without saying it.
So yeah, I think we can do this one with just a look.
Yeah.
Which is exactly
specialty,
what
our specialty.
That's our specialty. In fact, I stole that from Kyle Chandler, who said it on the set of Friday Night Lights. Did you guys know this story? He was given like 2-page monologue. And he looking at it, and he went to the director and he said, I think I can do this with just a look. And he did. And he did. Well, hey, look, that's words to live by. So that the score was our opportunity to let the audience in and understand what's going on in his head. But you were alluding to the camera work in the film. I mean, we were blessed. We were working with Michael Bauman, who had just come off of literally shooting one battle after another. He is an absolute prince. And I will say, yeah, he's one of the greatest, and more than his ability to compose gorgeous images, he was the center of our morale. This is the guy, he's been making, name one of your favorite movies. Mike Bauman was on that set, right? I went to the Panavision camera house in New York to test lenses and to shoot with Dom, just doing little tests. Every single person in the building came by just to say hi to Mike and shake his hand. This guy, and you'd never think it, he's the most humble person in the world. And he was the guy who said every single day when things were going bad, when we were not at our best, he would say, you know what? This is going to be great. I promise I've seen way worse. And he's a master. He composes images that are subtle and beautiful, and you got to see some of what he did in Provincetown. I think you guys, those of you who live here, are going to be extremely happy with how your city looks in the film, because it was important to us. It was important to us to really get a sense of the character and show this place as both beautiful but also mysterious. And yeah, that's Bauman to a T.
So
Beautiful and mysterious.
thank you for that. And as we wrap up the conversation, I want to give you a moment to tee up the clip we're about to watch. And the way I'll do that is by, if folks have read Kitchen Confidential, I think in the book he calls it the Dreadnought, the restaurant where he's working. In the movie we see it's the Flagship.
Because that's the truth.
That's
those
the
of
truth.
those of you who know, yeah, Bourdain had changed the names of characters and places, I guess, to protect the innocent, and we went back to the original text.
So as a setup for this clip, the restaurant, the Flagship, is also a character in this
Big
film.
time.
So set up the clip by telling us a little bit about that, about the restaurant space and the flagship. And then what's going to happen is we're going to, after Matt sets this up, we're going to clear the seats so we can, I think you guys want to watch the clip as well together. So we'll make space so we can watch the clip. And then we're going to go have a clam bake together. So so thank you in advance for being here. Let me hand it over to Matt to take us home. Have a great rest of your festival, and we'll see you in a little bit.
And thank you, Eugene. Okay, so I'm going to answer a question you didn't ask first, which is actually about this clam bake, because those of you who live here will know who Howard Mitchum is, I assume. Howard Mitchum, almost as much as Anthony Bourdain, was one of my references for this film. As I said, I lived above that house on stilts, which is obviously right down the street from Pepe's. And he was the first person that I heard about when locals would tell me, oh, you're doing the Anthony Bourdain story? Well, you gotta look at Mitchum. You gotta read the Provincetown Seafood Cookbook. Well, you've gotta go see his wife who's survived and lives down the street. Like, you gotta hear the stories about Howard. And so it's not what I thought I would get when I came here looking for the story of Anthony Bourdain, and holy shit were they right. You look at Howard Mitchum's writing, you look at his view of food, you look at his view of community, and you go, oh my God, there's Anthony Bourdain. And it's the type of thing that only people in Provincetown and the surrounding area will ever even know. Like, it's one of these cultural secrets that of course, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it's not like that needs to be a part of his story. But again, as I said about role models, we have them, and it's not like the world sees them all. So this clam bake that we're having is inspired by Howard Mitchum's tradition of the Gatsby clam bake. I'm not sure if anybody's been to that. Has anybody here been to one of Howard Mitchum's clam bakes? One person? Or that was clapping, saying no, wrap it up. Yeah, okay, yeah, we got to get to the clip. All right, I'll just explain the clip. So what you're about to see is Anthony Bourdain's first day in a kitchen in his life. He has made a deal with Antonio Banderas to stay on his hammock in exchange for washing dishes, because he wants to stay there to pursue what will become his future wife, Nancy. He has no idea what he's doing. He's convinced he's going to be a world famous writer, and this is not something he wants to be doing. And so what you're about to witness is the very beginning of Anthony Bourdain seeing how a kitchen works. That will ultimately change the rest of his life. Thank you so much, Provincetown. We had the time of our life. And another big shout out for Eugene. See you guys later.